I thought I'd bring you something a little bit different today. We're here in Henley in the middle of the Royal Regatta, and behind me here is a very interesting and very beautiful boat now called Clara Belle. She was designed by the very famous yacht designer Nigel Irens, who has a thing about creating really efficient displacement craft. So it has a very thin bow, very fine entry, and a hull that is designed not to channel water under it, but to channel it past it. So it's particularly efficient. It's not trying to plane, it's just trying to stay absolutely level and use as little power as possible. Now, she's a 32-foot craft. She is built out of yellow cedar. It's all wooden, which is actually a very light method of build. She weighs just about 2 tons all up. And originally she was powered by nothing more than a 20 horsepower Beta diesel engine. But in fact, the new owner, who has just taken it on, has had it completely redone, refitted, and equipped with an electric motor. So she's now powered by an ePropulsion 6 kilowatt electric motor, which rather interestingly is actually installed in the original rudder. So if you look down here, you might just be able to see through the water. You can see the propeller, and the motor itself is actually lodged inside the actual rudder. So the rudder has been cut away, that pod-like motor has been installed on it. Now usually these are installed as pods through the hull, but by putting it in the rudder it killed 2 birds with 1 stone. It meant that you could retain the normal steering gear but have an electric propulsion system and have almost 180 degrees of movement with that rudder. So very clever, neat solution, which avoids a lot of the hassle of having to put it through the hull of the boat, which is what would normally happen on that kind of sail drive system. So we have a little look on board. She's just been completely refitted with new teak decks and was originally a sea boat. So she spent most of her life in Sulcombe. She was built in between 2015 and 2017. And you can see it's got this lovely big cockpit, and you can see the steering gear under here. See the ram, and that attaches to a little mini rudder, tiller, and that tiller is obviously going into the rudder. So that's how it steers. Got a hydraulic ram, and that goes up to the helm position further forward. So we've got these beautiful teak decks that have just been done by Moody Decking. Now this is the original engine hatch. But obviously there is no engine in there now, but what we have done is use it to install the batteries. So I'm not sure if I can do this one-handed. I might just be able to lift it up. Hang on a second. Let's just, okay. So there we go. You can see it has 2 9 kilowatt hour ePropulsion batteries, and they're driving that 6 kilowatt motor, and that will give a range. So if you're going flat out using the 6 kilowatt motor, you'll get a speed of around about 8-9 knots and around about 3 hours of cruising, but throttle back to around about 5 knots and using 3 kilowatts, then you've got 6 hours, and so it goes. If you knock it back to 3.5-4 knots, then you'll have more like 9 hours cruising. But the beauty of going all electric is obviously the absolute silence, and we have been for a little bit of a run up the river as guests of the new owner, and it was completely silent because the motor itself is under the water, batteries are all here, there's no noise, no vibration, no fumes, and on the river it's absolutely perfect. Now here is the helm position. You can see we've got a wooden wheel equipped here, this very delicate little electric throttle just pulls out to engage gear. ePropulsion monitoring system, so you can get a complete readout of how much power you're using, what speed you're going, how much range you've got. All very neatly integrated. And we might just have a little look back here. You can see some of the charging systems. So those fans either side, those 2 charging, those are the 2 battery chargers, and they keep it all, the battery topped up. It just plugs in through normal shore power, and I think you can see that's the shore power connection under the transom there. that feeds those two chargers, and then that central black box is the engine control system, or the motor control system. Very neat installation. You can see there you go, it's nice to see the actual yellow cedar planking. You can see of the original hull itself. That's how it's all put together with frames. Now it has got glass on the outside to help keep it a little bit more maintenance free. And these are ash slats in here. They are painted, but they are also wood. And this windscreen was actually added at a later date. The designer originally had it as a purely open boat, but then designed this wraparound windscreen, lots of little sections, but actually adds to the look of the thing. It's rather beautiful, but we'll show you that from outside again in a minute. Then there's a hatch down to the cabin, and we've just got two very simple benches along here. And again, this lovely wooden slatting boards, a couple of small hull windows, and this lovely deck head arrangement with 4 little brass glass windows in here, and then a small heads compartment where it traditionally is, right in the heads of the boat, and a little curtain that draws across for privacy, and another hatch which opens up, which I might just be able to show you that. It's rather a clever way of getting to the foredeck. That just lifts up, and so you can lift this up and over, lay it on the deck, and access the anchor and the bow and all the ropes if you need to do any mooring. So rather a clever way of actually accessing that. And of course there is a little toilet under there if you actually need to. But it's rather a clever way of accessing the foredeck without having to jump over the windscreen. Obviously these double up as berths. You can sleep on board. The owner is planning to camp on board with his children. Rather lovely, just motor up the river very quietly, stop somewhere pretty, either by a pub or alongside the bank, and sleep the night. Be rather a lovely thing to do. Typically, it being an English summer's day, it has just poured with rain, so we've got soaking wet decks and rather damp cushions, but now the sun is out again, as is often the case, and it's a beautiful big cockpit. We had probably 10 of us on board, plenty of space for us all to hang out. Naturally, we had to have a little bit of champagne and strawberries and chocolate cake and the like. That's all part of the river scene. Simple but rather lovely little wooden helm seat, and lots of brass lockers, access to bits and pieces. You can see over here too, these very traditional push button brass frames around the locker doors. Proper boat. And this lovely long foredeck. Let's have a look at that from outside. These are these little squares, deck hatches that you can see with the brass frame around them. And the clever thing is that when this forehatch lifts up and over, it folds on top of the others, and those 4 deck hatches line up with those 4 deck hatches, so even when it's open you still get light coming down into that cabin. Now here you can see the painted outside. It has been glassed over, so there's a proper gel coat style paint and what looks like copper coat on the hull itself, and you can see there's lovely elegant lines. Probably get an idea just how slender that peak is, but that's what gives it that level of efficiency and means that even with a 6 kilowatt electric motor, it just slips along absolutely silently, glides along the river, no problem at all, with very little effort, no vibration and no emissions. And you can see the shape of the hull here. So the reason it's been designed, it's very flat at the bottom here, and that's because Nigel Irens' theory is, well, not theory, is proven, is that if you can keep it level and stop it squatting like a normal displacement boat, you can actually exceed the natural displacement hull speed of the boat. So clearly it's very long in relation to its beam. It's got that very slender entry point, and it's got a very flat stern. So whereas the bow end of the boat is quite deep, the stern is very shallow, and that stops it squatting. It keeps it running very level. It avoids too much water being funneled under the boat. It just funnels it down the side, and that's what enables it to run much quicker than you would expect for a boat of its size, and particularly its relatively modest power output. But she is a thing of absolute beauty and a pleasure to take for a spin on the river. And I have to say, you do feel a little bit smug when everybody else is chugging along with their diesel engines or outboards buzzing away, and you've got nothing but the quietness and silence of an electric motor and the elegance of a beautifully proportioned, beautifully built, traditional English launch. Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different. It's very nice to see people not only building these boats, but looking after them, and somebody else taking it on and deciding to do something a little bit different, moving it from its original home in Salcombe here to the river in Henley, and giving it fresh life by installing an electric motor and battery pack and all these lovely teak decks, and giving it a new life here on the river. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do hit the little bell icon to be reminded whenever we post a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.